never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
"2020 has been nothing more than a year of chaos, frustration, heartbreak, emotional stress for every single one of us. But the worst part of the year, the part that really frustrates me beyond belief, is the amount of friends that I have personally lost from talking politics, for speaking my mind, for speaking the truth, for weighing in on what I personally think about the very real and political situations that are sadly ripping America apart. Today, we're going to talk about why we're losing so many friends, why our family has considered many of us the black sheep. Today, we're going to get real, and we're going to talk about the very emotional stress that are breaking friendships up and tearing family apart for, sadly, what may be on repair. But first, I'd like to start the show by thanking every single one of you today for your support. I really mean that. I thank you so much for your support. I started this show for the sole purpose of being able to speak the truth, to get my opinions and views out there, because I was sick of being suppressed. I was sick of the media painting a picture based on their very biased agenda. I couldn't take it anymore. So I started this show because I needed a vent. I needed an outlet to let people know how I feel about these very real situations. And I want to thank you all so much for your support, for becoming fans of the show, for spreading the message, for helping us grow. It means the world to me. So thank you all so much. It's only been a few weeks since we started. We're growing. We're getting the truth out there. And I couldn't be more grateful for everything that you have done to help support this show. So thank you all very, very much. So today we're going to talk about what happened to the honest debate. What happened to being able to have a nice conversation with your friends and family without it always ending in tears. I grew up in a household where debate was encouraged. It was highly recommended that we talk it through, that we talk about each side, and that we respected each side of the story, no matter what side of the fence you sit on, Democrat, Republican. I've got a Democratic mother, a Republican father. They debated, and I was so into it. I sat there on the sidelines and I observed them and I listened, and they always ended in a very friendly and loving and professional manner. And when their friends came over, they all did the same thing. I would sit up with them late night on every election until their winner was called. It didn't matter how late that was. While my brothers and sisters were off partying and doing whatever they do, I was there observing. I was taking it all in, and I listened to them debate in a very professional and constructive manner. I was obsessed with it. And although I tried to chime in every once in a while at the age of 10 and didn't really know what I was talking about, I was certainly observing the fact that it was cool to see how they tackled each other's views and opinions, and it always ended friendly. I respected that, and I learned growing up that that is how you debate, that you challenge, that you speak your mind, and that you discuss it. It's only healthy. But why in 2020 do these debates end in tears? It's disgusting how we're all treating each other. Why is it that nobody can actually get along? Why have we lost family over it? Why have we lost friendships over it. For speaking the truth, well, if that's what it is, then I'm not going to have much of a friends list left, because I'm going to keep continuing to speak my mind, to voice my concerns, to exercise my First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, because that is the most powerful thing that we as Americans have, our freedom of speech. And we can't let anybody ever take that away from us. Our opinions must not be suppressed. So it's healthy that we continue to talk it through, that we continue to debate, and whoever doesn't want to be a part of the conversation, tough. We're not changing our ways. Let's head over to Newsmax this morning and listen to what George Kelly had to say about how his friends are attacking him for speaking his mind.
By the way, Crown Season 4 is pretty boring. Personal, but I think you might be able to relate. You're a Trump supporter. I'm a Trump supporter. Not all of our friends dig Trump, and they dig us less because we dig Trump. Have you been feeling the heat from your friends? Are some of them threatening to not talk to you or wondering why you are a crazy person? I've gotten that a lot lately. And one very interesting exchange from some people I love and adore. I hope they're friends for the rest of my life. But they told me about how their son has been following me on Twitter, and they've called my Twitter feed pure evil. Pure evil. So it really made me think, and I stopped and wrote a little text message back. Again, I wrote it with love. First of all, they offered me $20,000 a month to stop. This is a kid, by the way, the son we're talking about. He's 21. I don't know how they came up with that figure, but this is what I wrote back. I am supporting those filing lawsuits in court. I have a hunch that your son supported the Black Lives Matter movement and their protests, a socialist organization that supports dismantling the nuclear family. People rioted in their name and were praised almost universally. There's nothing that's happening now that undermines democracy on our side. Article 2 and the 12th Amendment allow for all of this, including contesting the matter within the Electoral College. Joe DeGeneva, we talked about him personally, they mentioned him. I know Joe DeGeneva personally. I've had dinner with him and his wife. He was not threatening anyone. If we condemn him, let's condemn anyone who's ever said, I want to kill somebody. Figure of speech that I've uttered a million times. I'd ask your son if he noticed there wasn't rioting when it was reported that Joe Biden was the apparent winner. Seems like a lot of people were anticipating violence, plywood over businesses, etc. But it did not happen. If the results were different, does he think the left would have refrained from violence and rioting? Would rioting after a Trump victory have been anti-democratic? Would that have been pure evil? Rhetorical question, of course, not asking him to answer.
So, George Kelly made a very good point. He's made actually several very good points. But as you'll notice, the first thing that he was attacked for was being pure evil. He's out there speaking his mind like so many of us are right now. We feel the need to counterbalance the very left-biased media agenda produced by so many of the likes of CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and the others that have a very specific narrative that they want to push. So there's many of us who are countering that right now with our own news shows, with our own channels. We're just having an argument here. But as you can see, if you don't follow the left agenda, you're pure evil. How does that make sense? He was offered $20,000 per month to stop talking about it. Somebody was offering to pay him 20 grand to suppress his views and opinions. And he makes a very good point. When Black Lives Matter was rioting, when they were burning down cities, when they were looting stores, when they were tearing down precious historical monuments, we sat there and we took it. We didn't agree with it, but we accepted it. We didn't fight back. We let them do their thing. As disgusting as it was, we let them do it. But now, that Biden has been pronounced president-elect, no rioting on our part. They expected it. We didn't riot. All we are doing is challenging, arguing, voicing our opinions on the validity of the election. And we are now considered monsters for it. As George Kelly just said, all he wants to do is exercise the 12th Amendment. Is that not a reasonable request, to be able to question the validity of an election? And there is evidence out there, regardless of how it may or may not change the election outcome, but it's our right to be able to speak freely and to be able to voice these opinions and concerns. So I thought it was very interesting that George Kelly, Newsmax, a massive news channel, by the way, if you don't know of it. If you don't know of it and you are sitting on the right conservative side, you're going to want to check these guys out because they speak from an angle of debate and from truth and honest opinion versus a narrative that most of the left constantly pushes. But the saddest thing about all of this, about all of us who are trying to voice our opinions and have debates and just trying to kind of logically argue this here, and that's the key here. I feel like the right argues with logic and the left argues with irrational emotion. And I hate to say this, but time and time again, it's been proven from arguments that I've been in that logic is argued with emotion, and it's very hard. It's very hard to kind of get through to somebody when all they keep doing is arguing with emotion. They almost sound like they're regurgitating CNN verbiage. It's like they're walking little CNN media outlets, because every time we come out with, well, hold on a second, do masks really work? Do they really work? Cases are skyrocketing. We're not really curbing anything. We've been wearing these things for 8 months here in New York State, yet we can't curb the pandemic. So let me just kind of debate this for a minute and ask you, do they really work? Well, what's the average response besides, oh, you're a murderer? How dare you say that they don't work? People are dying. Do you want more to die? Stay home. You're just a Trumpster. It's like, hold on a second. All I did was say that. Do they really work? I didn't need you to accuse me of murdering people. All I'm doing is asking your honest opinion. Do they work? I'm not so sure here. Do lockdowns work? Because New York State has the highest lockdown, or has the highest death rate in the entire country, yet Florida, who doesn't lock down, has half the amount of deaths. See, these are all very logical explanations, but I feel like we're not debating logic to logic anymore. We're debating logic to emotion. And it's a very dangerous recipe for a debate. I feel like half the country wants to sit here and debate with logic, while half the country wants to just regurgitate what they watched on CNN earlier this morning. It's very frustrating. Let's head over to the Keyboard Warrior Cam and see what other Americans have to say about why they're losing friends, why they are losing family over speaking their mind about all of the different political issues throughout 2020. So we'll start today with a sad comment that I read. It's by Rose, and Rose says, my brother, who I thought was my best friend all my life, told me I was a hypocrite and he hated everything I stood for. We have not talked in years. I mean, how sad is this? You know, your brother, you can't even have a debate with your brother anymore. They haven't spoken in years, all over the fact that they couldn't agree to disagree. And I've seen this. I've heard from friends who have told me that they have a brother who's kicked his niece out of the house because he supported Trump, or because he didn't think the pandemic was as serious as the uncle did. So he was told to pack up and get out of the house. Since when is it acceptable to treat family like that? Since when is it acceptable not to be able to have a debate without it ending in tears or swear words? What happened to just trying to explain our point logically on both sides and ending with shaking hands? It doesn't happen. It does not happen anymore. And I don't know if the stress of coronavirus has just thrown everybody off the deep end, but there's a real problem here, and it's getting worse. Becky says, the hard thing is if you want to explain yourself to why Trump is the good one, they don't want to listen. Thank goodness my family is on the same side as me, with a few exceptions. And as far as friends, I helped turn my best friend to vote for Trump. So I'm good. Thank you, Greg Kelly and all the Newsmax team. Love your shows in the evening. And this is a rare one. We don't see this that often. We don't see friends actually turning friends to a different side. During the debates, the number one criticism I saw, and it was very sad, is why am I going to watch the debate? I'm not going to change my mind anyway. There's no point. And I thought that was sad. I thought that people were so... I thought that everyone was acting so childish that they couldn't even watch two sides debate. They had their mind made up. I mean, if that's not acting like a 5-year-old, then I don't know what is. I watched every single debate. I watched Biden. I watched Trump. I watched Harris. I watched Pence because I wanted both perspectives. I voice my opinion a lot on CNN. I voice it a lot. I know I'm going to get murdered. I know I'm going to get attacked when I voice my opinions on CNN, but I don't care. And people are like, why are you here? Troll. That's the new thing. You're a troll if you have a difference in opinion. You're just a troll. If you have anything constructive to say on these media outlets, if you have anything constructive to say, that, but it's not in the opinions of the minds who are already there, you are a troll. I'm not being a troll. I'm just explaining that I don't agree. But nope, you're a troll. So I purposely voice my opinion on left-wing based media outlets all the time because I appreciate the difference in perspective. I appreciate what both sides have to say. I get comments like, why are you here? Why yet? I'll say, CNN, this is disgusting that you even report this. And I'll get replies like, well, then why yet you're here on CNN? Why are you here, troll? And I'm like, because I appreciate the difference in perspective. I appreciate both sides of the story because I, unlike most of you emotional head cases, can end a debate shaking hands. But the sad part is, by the time you end that debate, most people, they don't even want to shake hands anymore. It's very sad. Let's go back to the keyboard warrior cam and see what more people have to say about why we're losing so many friends over politics. I can definitely relate to this, says Marlene, but I have no regrets losing friends over my support of President Trump. My loyalty is to God first, second to country, and not to friends that support anti-America and anti-God policies. And listen, let's leave Trump out of the equation for a second. I mean, I know Trump's in here a lot, but it doesn't matter. For those of you Democratic viewers who are watching this right now, by the way, I love you all. I love Republicans. I love Democrats. I appreciate everything everyone has to say about everyone. I wrote on my news feed, and if you go on my personal news feed, I leave it open for anybody to check out because I'm not one of those people who want to seclude myself to just the people who agree with me. So I leave it wide open for everybody to check out. And if you go, I don't know, 20, 30 posts back by now, I wrote on my newsfeed one day when the day that Biden was declared president-elect, and I say it quote unquote because nothing's really been declared yet, but I wrote on my newsfeed, I said, listen, regardless of what side of the fence you sit on, we are Americans. And it is our job to come together and unite and debate these challenges moving forward. Freedom of speech and voicing our opinions about amongst each other is the most important thing that we have. So let's just agree to disagree. But either way, I look forward to the next 4 years. I think it's healthy that we can continue to voice our opinions and have these debates. So I made it very clear that I love everybody. I love all Americans. Because at the end of the day, this is our country, and it's a great country. It's a very free country that we should all be so lucky to be a part of. And if we can't come together and continue to drive the country forward, then we've achieved nothing except for potentially a civil war ahead of us. So it's very important that we all come together. Let's see what else. What else do people have to say here? The American people have spoken. Let's see. Kelly says, the water and oil separate, so do the good of heart and the lost of the world, blinded by the evil of the world, stay in the light and follow the good of heart on the lit path to glory. It's true. We are very separated right now, but we do need to steer the path. We need to steer the course. We need to come together. We can't keep letting politics drive us apart. Stuart from Australia says, we are here in Australia, half a world away, are experiencing the same crap. Good to see that this isn't just isolated to the United States. I have personally been discriminated against by a professional surgeon and a taxi driver for being a Trump supporter. Not to mention all the other idiots at our local pub that watch nothing but the mainstream media and have no idea what is going on. Our media is as bad, if not worse. That backs up everything I have had to say to date. The media is the real culprit here. They have divided this country. They have pushed buttons. They have forced the emotional to scream and yell at the other side by triggering their pain points. They know exactly how to push these buttons, and they've done a beautiful job at it. Our media absolutely is the culprit here, and it's very sad that they claim to be for the people, yet they do nothing but divide and attack everybody that doesn't side with them. We'll look at one more comment here, and then we'll go back to what George Kelly has to say about the rest of his experience with voicing his opinions and losing so many friends over it. Tracy Smith says, lost many left-wing nut friends over being a Trump supporter. Lifelong pal since our grade school years. Even some family members refrain from speaking to us because we are Trump supporters. I pray that their eyes and hearts be open to the truth, and with surmounting evidence, their minds will be opened to receiving the truth. Otherwise, they are truly lost sheep. Let's just analyze this for a second. Let's take a look at how polite and respectful these comments are. You go over to CNN, it's disgusting. I hate you, troll, screw you, you're nothing but a murderer, you know, you're the reason that people are dying. It's awful, the attacks we're getting. And I'm not surprised. Let's take a look again. They are following. Okay. And if you're not, and if you are on the left and you're not one of these people, I apologize in advance. Okay. But there are many people that are following the tune of hatred. And it's because the Democratic Party has allowed such hatred to filter through down to the people. When the riots were happening, when cities were being burned to the ground, the left did nothing about it. The Democratic Party did absolutely nothing to stop it. Trump said, I will send in the National Guard. Just call me. Anytime, I will end this nonsense. Nope, we're good, the governor said. We want nothing to do with you. We want to let this play out. Let this play out. Lives were destroyed. People lost their lives. Businesses were burned to the ground, never to return. And it was allowed. So I'm not surprised that that hatred has been now filtered down to the American people who sit on that side. And those comments now are being fed right through back into CNN or other left-wing media outlets. And that hatred has been carried right the way through. Well, the right or the conservatives have fought this argument with logic, and we continue to fight with logic. So both parties have set the tone. And regardless of what side you sit on, that tone has been carried right the way through. So I don't blame my Democratic friends for being so emotional, because the Democratic Party is the party of emotion. It's the party of irrational thinking. It's the party of hatred. And you can disagree with me all you want, but actions speak louder than words. The riots made it very clear that your party is okay with murder, that your party accepts rioting when you don't get your way. And the Republican Party, or the conservative way of thinking, is let's attack this with logic. Notice how when Biden was elected after a very, very sketchy election process, I watched the election play out second by second. I watched every second of it. And I thought, and I even posted, Trump train is coming, full steam ahead. It was Trump, 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 Trump. And then all of a sudden, it was like when the mail-in ballots started coming in and things started turning a little bit, I thought, this doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. I started questioning it. I started challenging it. And so did the Republican Party. So did Trump. We challenged it with logic. We didn't take to the streets. We didn't go MAGA crazy with our guns. We just challenged it logically. So when our party challenges these situations logically, time and time again, that's going to filter down and set the tone for the Republican constituents. We're going to start taking direction from leadership. So it's no wonder why we are so divided. Our parties and our media have caused that division, but the tones have been set very differently. We have a party of rioting, an emotional way of thinking, and we have a party of strategical logic challenge. Let's head over to Newsmax and we'll see what else George Kelly has to say as he finishes up his video here.
By the way, Crown Season 4 is pretty boring. And one, I want to go back to that point about the red hat, make America great again. If you really think our side is evil, what would happen if you wore that hat in the heart of New York City? I live and work in the heart of New York City. If I wore that hat home, walking about 3 miles or so, I wouldn't make it home. I would not make it home. And they say our side is evil. All right. If my friends are watching, I do want to remind them that I love you guys and you're the best people, and we may disagree politically. That's fine. That's totally fine. At least for me. I hope it is for you.
You just watched Newsmax.
You can't even express your opinion anymore. You can't even walk a few blocks in a liberal-run city like New York City wearing a MAGA hat. How many of you were scared to death of wearing your Trump hats? How many of you couldn't do it? I didn't see many at all. And you know what the sad thing is? I didn't see many Biden hats either. The people who didn't wear Biden hats just didn't care enough. They weren't patriotic enough. The people who wanted to wear their Trump hats didn't because they were afraid of being attacked, whether verbally, physically. And it's a very sad day in our age when you can't even express your passion for a candidate. You almost have to hide behind closed doors and now express your freedom of speech. That's why I call them keyboard warriors. Is because we never hear from people out in the open. It's always behind a keyboard that we get to express our opinion, which is why there's so much hatred on social media right now. If we were sitting in a room with the same people who attacked you on social media, would they speak like that to you personally? Probably not. It's disgusting how people are treating each other on social media, and a lot of it comes from a very irrational and emotional left way of thinking. I have family who are teachers, and I voiced my concerns over the fact that kids should be in school, that teachers should be in person 5 days a week. Yet I'm the selfish one. But what they fail to understand, because the media keeps brainwashing them, what they fail to understand is that in-person learning is completely safe. New York City, Mayor de Blasio has said, I'd like the kids to be back in school full-time now. December 7th, get these kids back in school. Monroe County, out of 318 cases, there have been 0 deaths under the age of 30. There have been 0 cases where a child has transmitted the coronavirus to a teacher and that teacher's died. 0 since we have been doing this hybrid model. The data is there. The logic is there. Our governors and politicians keep telling us to follow the science. Well, we're following the science, and the science is telling us that kids need to be back in school full time. This does not make me selfish. What I find is selfish is that teachers refuse to go back to school for whatever reason besides following the data. They don't want to go because of a maybe. I don't know if they've all got each other wound up over this, or if they continue to watch and listen to the media report on the fear mongering, but they choose and make their decisions based on what the media tells them to do, rather than just applying logic to the situation. The last thing I would personally ever want is to put any of my family in danger. It's the last thing I would want. I would never want any family, not family. I would never want anyone to suffer from this virus. But when we think about the situation and we look at the fact that the virus has a 99.8% survival rate, that there's not a single case of death under the age of 30 out of 315 cases in Monroe County, that there's not a single case of a student transmitting coronavirus to a teacher and that teacher dying. There's not a single case. I have to sit here and think, can we get back to normal, please? When cases continue to skyrocket, but the death rate does not, I have to think, okay, people are getting coronavirus, but they're not dying. Can we get back to normal life here, please? Can we take the mask off? The mask doesn't seem to be working. Cases are still skyrocketing. Biden comes out yesterday and says, can we please just wear the mask for another 100 days? And I'm thinking, are you out of your freaking mind? We've just been wearing the damn thing for the last 180. We've been wearing this thing for the last 6, 7, 8 months. It's not working. It's not curbing the pandemic. Listen, we don't need a case study anymore. Use New York. We have all the data you guys could possibly need to understand that masks aren't necessarily working. And I'm arguing this from a point of logic and data, not because I think I'm a doctor. I'm applying common sense, which apparently you're not allowed to do anymore. If you're not an expert, your opinion doesn't mean anything. If you're not Dr. Fauci, we don't care what you have to say. You're not allowed to have an opinion anymore. How disgusting is that? That the media have brainwashed us to not use common sense anymore. That they have put the likes of Dr. Fauci on a godlike level. Unbelievable. It's sad, and I think our media and our politicians have done this. They have caused hatred, they have caused division, yet I still respect the other side's view. I will always respect their view. And I think you have to cut through the noise. And if you apply common sense and logic and data to the big picture here, then you'll find yourself in a lot more enjoyable argument. If you remove emotion and stop being so irrational, you may just find that more people agree with you than they don't. And remember, it's okay to agree to disagree. Let's head over back to the keyboard warrior cam, and we'll see what other people have to say about losing their friends and family over voicing their opinions. Brett says, and it's a very good argument, if you lost friends over politics, they probably were not friends. And that's true. How many friends have you lost over politics that you kind of think, you know what? These guys should have never been my friends in the first place. It's happening more and more. I don't consider half of my friends list true friends. I consider them a great network, great acquaintances. But I welcome the debate. Always. I welcome the debate. And anybody who can't handle the debate, they can hit the unfriend button. Makes no difference to me. Robert says, you know, it is easy to look at Obama and complain about how he does his job. Very easy when you are an outsider. Boy, when you get in the same job, it is not easy. You say the wrong thing or get hit with a pandemic, then it is not so easy. If you are a supporter of that person, it is just as hard to defend their mistakes. Even harder when that same person you support doubles down on every mistake they make. tough to support that person. It's a very fair point. It's hard. People feel like they can't even support people anymore because when that person makes a mistake, you're now by default connected to that mistake. I'm a Trump supporter, but Trump is the one calling the shots here. Okay? Just because he may do something that you don't like doesn't mean you need to hate me. I mean, how ridiculous of a thought process is that? There's a lot I agree when it comes to Donald Trump, and there's a lot I disagree with. Do I think he could speak a little bit more professionally and politely to the American people? Absolutely. But just because he doesn't mean I'm an asshole. That's not how it works. Just because you support Biden doesn't mean I'm going to hate you for Biden's views. And similarly, just because I support Trump doesn't mean I'm an anti-masker. Everybody has been categorized and put in these different pockets. Your friends list is now put in pockets of division. Who supports Trump, who supports Biden. And if you support that person, you are now just as evil as that person is. It's very sad that we can't just respect each other's opinions and support each other. 20 grand, referring to George Kelly's comment of him being offered 20 grand to be silenced. 20 grand, I call that a payoff, bribery. Like quite a few others have been offered and accepted, I'm sure. William Barr. Let's tackle this for a second. Politicians throughout this electoral fraudulent process have been silenced. They've been silenced because they are scared of political suicide. They are scared because they don't think they're going to get reelected if they side on the side of the evidence. And that is corruption. We are not allowing politicians, because of our backlash towards them, we are not allowing them the opportunity, the real opportunity to be able to get through this evidence in the timely fashion that they need. They know if they side with the evidence, it could be political suicide. Why? Because the media has told the American people there is no evidence and that you're a nutcase if you believe there is. Well, it's not the media's job to decide what evidence gets approved or thrown out in court. But because the media has brainwashed us with no evidence, no evidence, no evidence throughout this entire fraudulent case, the American people now believe, because the media said so, that there's no evidence. So if the majority of the country believes there's no evidence and a politician now challenges the evidence, well, they are now considered a nutcase too. And guess what? So are you for supporting that politician. So it's better that they avoid the whole thing and say, you know what? I want nothing to do with this. I'm just going to rule against the evidence. Case closed. We'll call it the day. By the way, vote for me in 2022 when I'm up for re-election. It's horrible. It's horrible that the media has done this to this country. It's horrible that the media has destroyed families, that friendships, lifelong friendships have been ruined over it. It's horrible that the left takes their instruction from a very violent party that continues to promote this violence and emotion and an irrational way of thinking. So I don't blame my friends and family for thinking like this, because they have been given approval from the party that they side with. I will continue to think from a perspective of logic. I will continue to challenge the status quo. And I encourage every one of you, I beg that every one of you out there watching this continues to challenge the status quo, continues to exercise your freedom of speech, continues to call out the government for the fraud that they potentially may be. If we see something, we say something. That is the American way. And it's up to us to continue to protest. We're Americans after all. That's what we do. Whether it's at home, whether it's out on the streets, we protest, we challenge, we debate. Have respect for each other. You don't know what the other person's going through. You don't know how stressed out they might really be in life. You don't know that they're struggling to make their mortgage payment next month. And to crap all over them for their opinion and their views may be the breaking point that sends them into further depression, that pushes them over the edge. Because your rude and irrational and emotional attack may be the last conversation that you ever have with that person. I encourage all of us to debate freely, honestly, ethically, look at the data, and have respect for one another. Have respect for one another. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. You've been watching You Made It Political. If you want to be a guest on the show, email guest@youmadeitpolitical.com. I'd love to have you on. This show is all about you, the American people. This is why we go to social media. This show is for you. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you guys. Have a great rest of the day. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week, Monday morning sharp at 10 a.m. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with